The 14 phrases, 36 sinners, heaven, and then on. I do have a lot to address. Alright, so for the most part, everything was pretty much reasonable, but it'd also be good if I gave more insight on certain things I brought up in the last video. So I'm going to be lining up the phrases, but let me talk about some things. Rhinoceros beetle, probably the most questioned one. A lot of points were drawn to it being a reference to the Beatles because, well, there's 4 Beatles, and the diary has rhinoceros beetle written 4 times. While it could be a reference, it really wouldn't even correlate. Plus, I hadn't even got to the part of connecting it, but development makes way more sense, just wait on it. Correlating with it being said 4 times aside from what we had mentioned, rhinoceros beetles go through 4 stages of development that match up. And even furthering it on, you have the Requiem arrow, right? The arrow that can easily be distinguished from the other arrows due to a beetle design on it. The Requiem arrow also maxes out your potential in a sense, causing large development. You should already know the other little tidbits about the Requiem arrow, so I'm just going to move on from that. Now, I told you guys I was going to connect the dots and answer these questions, so I will go about it in this order. What do the phrases all mean when connected? Why the need of sinners? And what is heaven? Now, let's address the first question with ease. I love that some of you guys already went ahead with connecting it with the events. It's like you already knew what I was getting at, so thank you for that. The 14 phrases connect to the events that the one who is looking to achieve heaven experiences. To put this into context, let me show you the 14 phrases. Now, putting the symbolizations right beside them. It looks like it makes more sense, right? Because at least now it just doesn't look like just a bunch of random words. But now connecting these to events. Let's focus on Pucci and his road to heaven. Well, to start it all off, Pucci's beginning in Stone Ocean starts off with Whitesnake and him getting the discs from Jotaro. This happens at the end of Volume 2, Visitor to Green Dolphin Street Prison, and being The Visitor Part 6. Now, here's the thing. We don't see Pucci until Volume 4, so after an encounter or two, not really focus on the plan, you have the interaction between Pucci and Sports Max. Sports Max being the stand user of Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit being a huge part of Heaven's plan with his stand ability of invisible reincarnation. Reason why is because he's able to go even further and revive through body parts. That's where we go to the next phase, Rhinoceros Beetle. This is the development of Dio's Bone, which we know how needed it is. This happens in Volume 7, Ultra Security Solitary. So after the reincarnation of Dio's Bone, we can go to the next step. The next step happening after a few pages of Dio and Pucci's talk of the weakest stand. The stand being Survivor, and Survivor being the key to the next phrase. Ruin Town, which we established to be the Apocalypse Survivor, is a stand that causes people to fight to death through stimulation of the human limbic system. Any 2 individuals who meet under Survivor's influence are likely to fight to death, this being the key to the technical apocalypse in the case because it's an all-out fight to the death between everyone. This brawl goes on from Volume 7 and ends at Volume 9. After this all-out brawl, the 36 prisoners start to get infected by Dio's Bone. Those that were infected were drawn to sunlight and had turned into plants. Remember how I said Fig Tart was power over nature? Dio's Bone follows exactly that, and has a power of nature. This happens in Volume 9 in the chapter A Green Birth Part 1. Green being a double entendre because you have the birth of Green Baby and the combination of photosynthesis and soul absorption. See, I hope that you're following me on this and had some time of hope that my nonsense would actually connect this all. Now let's move on to the next one, which is Rhinoceros Beetle / development again. The next development being Green Baby hatched out of its egg. This happens in Volume 10 Awaken in the chapter Awaken Part 1. Moving on into Via Dolorosa, which we established to be the way of suffering or the painful way. In Volume 12 Escape, we have Pucci and his start to a long road to the new moon. Now, he experiences a lot of issues when on the way, and the combination of Green Baby and Whitesnake is causing a lot of issues for him, but after that long struggle of bearing a homunculus stand child, Pucci gives birth to Sea Moon, which was the next phrase, Rhinoceros Beetle, meaning the Pucci's long and painful way had led to the next development in Green Baby, furthering it on into Sea Moon. The next phrase after that is Singularity Point, which means that the end has ended, but the began hasn't began yet. This confused me for a bit when I was making the script for the first video, Road to Heaven, because I was connecting the dots while writing for it all. But it had made so much sense when I was rereading Volume 16, and I had got to the gravity of New Moon Part 2. The end isn't the end at all in this case, but it's the end of 2 things, Whitesnake and Green Baby, which moves on to the next phrase, Johto, which had to be the forming of a new beginning. Sea Moon is that new beginning because we hadn't seen him until this chapter. The effects of Sea Moon had developed previously, but being able to see him in full had not happened until this chapter. But now we move on into the next phrase, which had originally seemed pretty iffy. The one who had delivered info of heaven to Pucci and who had messaged Emporio on his return. The phrase angel, which had led to be the messenger, which had led to Jotaro Kujo. Jotaro had delivered hope for both sides at different times. Even if it was against his will, it still happened. The messenger had returned, yet it didn't matter because we are now nearing the end of it all. Phrase 11, hydrangea, which we had stated to be rebirth due to hydrangea being a symbol of baptism, but I hadn't realized it actually goes deeper than that when getting down to the manga. Pucci had realized that he doesn't need to wait for the new moon, he only needed himself and, well, Sea Moon. Pucci was the vessel for the rebirth of Sea Moon due to bearing and moving it toward its needed destination. Or well, the destination was the vessel technically due to it being the reason for the rebirth, which does make more sense. Phrase 12. The final rhinoceros beetle, meaning the final step in the development of Dio's bone. And it had finally happened. Made in Heaven is now here. It happened, but none of the Stone Ocean team or the reader would know what's going on at all in that moment. I'm trying to say this as if it's from a first-time read perspective. So in thought, all of you see is this new stand with no thought on what it does or how strong is it. But right after the birth of Made in Heaven, everything comes to a reset in a sense. This is phrase 13, the second time we get Singularity Point. The development has ended, but the process hasn't began yet in the eyes of the crew and the reader. Then after waking up, fast drizzle and faulty machine doors, they begin to realize what's going on. Or well, it's more of Jotaro trying to figure out what's going on. Then right there where Pucci demonstrates his power is phrase 14, Secret Emperor. The phrase comes into full effect in this panel. He reveals his power right then and there, and the panels further on is him demonstrating his power against the crew. All for heaven, and that's it. But I want you guys to not get this all confused. The phrases aren't just points that I'm trying to connect. It's actually separate from what I'm trying to get at. The 14 phrases are these code words, but code words of gravity. The phrases only matter and happen to those on the road of achieving heaven. Each phrase is an event, and the events happen because of gravity. No event is a product of coincidence, and Pucci's journey is all guided by gravity. Gravity not being gravity, but Dio's definition of gravity that technically works like fate, or well, it might as well be fate, but in JoJo, fate and gravity are like yin and yang. Dio and Pucci experience the 14 phrases, and it happens in different ways for them. You can see the product of that from Eyes of Heaven and the Stone Ocean manga. Yet, no matter what, they always lose, which is odd, but it's not bad. In Dio's case, he had went through a couple of worlds before he lost, and who knows how long Dio over Heaven guy's been around. Well, we see the product of Dio in Heaven, but not how it got there, and we also will not see how it got there, so there's that. Pucci being the main story is as much as we'll get with an all-around understanding, so there's your first answer. Now for the needing of 36 sinners and what is heaven. For the 36 sinners, Dio gives his reason for it. That's because those who have sinned harbor a strong power within. That's kind of bars. Now, I haven't found anything largely connecting to this aside from the whole belief that nice people finish last. This becomes the case for actually a large amount of things in media, fiction, and life as a whole. You can fight for justice as much as you want, but evil is pretty strong, and plus evil has numbers. And in JoJo, we've had justice versus evil, and in the end, evil won. So I can understand Dio wanting people who are like 10% of his evil, because with that power and the right person, it could be used as a strong asset. And well, in Dio's case, he used the souls of those who have sinned as gas for his heaven mobile. Last question, what is heaven? Friend and fellow YouTuber Mehdi had made a video on it, and he explains it pretty well. It's over heaven also. And heaven isn't the same as the heaven we know, because in JoJo there's already a place like that, which does exist. Heaven in this case, I believe, is some form of spirit and body that is achieved through the requirements and sacrifices. It all sounds like something you hear about in a cult, and you have to do all these things to achieve what everyone in the cult is trying to achieve. Who Dio got the idea of heaven from, no clue. It's possible that he actually did all of the research and just formulated this all on his own. And from the only products of heaven being from Pucci and Dio and somehow Jotaro, I don't understand that still. It's connected to Dio, so I'll be seeing him as the creator of all of it. maybe there's someone pulling strings behind all of this. Maybe there's an actual reason Jotaro achieved heaven, and Eyes of Heaven isn't just some piece of work made by Squidward. Maybe we'll actually get a Heaven OVA for Stone Ocean when it's over. Who knows? That's gonna be like in 10 years or something like that. JoJo is bizarre. Questions are in the air and waiting to be answered. And that's about it. If there's anything you guys want to ask about to me, put in the comments. I might be able to get to it in a video possibly. So like the video if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't. 20K is looking pretty good in the near future. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't, and also on Twitch. I'm gonna be streaming more and kind of stream on YouTube and Twitch. But that's because I'm trying to get to Twitch to like 1K followers, and I'll be stopped streaming on YouTube and only on Twitch. But whatever about that. I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Until then, this has been Caleb. Peace out. Achieve heaven and Godspeed. You know that's why I said achieve heaven, because you gotta kill people, man.